Welcome, Sam.
I'll be honest with you, mate. It's about fucking time this happened. And
I
I'm
know,
glad to
I
be
know.
here. I really am.
I know we talked about it for a
Cheers,
long
brother.
time. Yeah.
Don't want to ruin your nice laptop.
Okay, it's
We're not
okay.
talking about tech today because I know fuck all about it.
I know we talked about it for a long time. I kind of wanted to get it started, so now
Absolutely.
we're here, man.
Absolutely. And if people like me, they can have me back. If not, you'll never see me again.
Oh, well, maybe in the future. Dude, but to anyone who's watching, right, like, introduce yourself. Like, I know you, we've been friends for a long time.
Yeah, absolutely. So my name's Sam, father of a nearly 7-year-old girl. My little girl has autism syndrome.
Yep.
Something that we challenge and deal with every day, my wife Hayley and I.
Yep.
Something that I would like to cover in detail if we can, just about being a father with a girl with autism, living with it and just trying to assimilate into the world. Because that's basically what I'm here to do. That's my mission. That's what I find purpose in. That's what I love doing. Right, so we can talk about that a bit. I'm a chef by trade. I also work out. I would consider it bodybuilding, yes, not just general fitness and just going and doing, step into life classes, or if that even is a thing anymore, or CrossFit and all that stuff, even though they're fantastic. But I just generally like 70s and 80s style bodybuilding, so I'll continue that as a passion and a hobby as well, what I consider most of my time in, and just being a father. That's basically it. And paying a mortgage off.
Right. Well, tell me about being a father. What's your what do you find most fulfilling about it? Cause me, I'm a young guy. Well, semi-young guy, like 26.
You're young, man. Bloody hell. I'm 36, yeah? 10 years older.
Yeah, but tell me about, because I think a lot of young kids nowadays, I mean, people my age don't have, or maybe it's just in the West, I'm not sure, but I think a lot of them focus more on being by themselves and not having kids, or maybe having a partner.
It's a new trend now, isn't it? It's a real new trend. And I speak to people and it upsets me a little bit because people don't have kids or they're choosing not to have kids. And I don't want to disrespect people that can't have kids. That's a different set of circumstances behind it. I.e. the woman is not fertile, she's barren, she can't have kids. Even the man might have a low sperm count, but that's no reason to not adopt. There's kids out there that need homes, that need families. And I used to look at adoption a bit differently. I used to feel in my 20s, if they're not from your bloodline, it's not real. Very wrong, very mistaken on it. Because at the end of the day, if you are going to teach that kid young, say you adopt a child, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, they're still impressionable. You can still put an imprint on them. And they're going to be basically what they would have been regardless, except looking a bit different to you, aren't they? You can still teach them in your ways. You can teach them about your family history and heritage. So I look at adoption a bit differently. But people now, they opt not to have kids and they're having kids later in life, which rightly or wrongly, it's part of society because we're chasing money, we're chasing our dreams, our hobbies, our habits, and they're taking over from what we want to do, which again, what I would say we're designed to do. Have a family, have kids.
Yeah, it's interesting.
So that's how I feel on this subject. But I can't force people to have those views. It's
interesting how you said it doesn't matter to you if it is adopted or not, or if your kid's adopted or not. I'm saying it
or when.
But I feel like mostly because I feel people wanna, with having biological kids, I feel like people want to, spread their genes.
Absolutely.
But
absolutely.
With adopted kids, you can't really do that.
Absolutely.
But I appreciate how you say it doesn't matter. But to some, to each his own, right?
Absolutely. And it's just, you just think about, again, because I never had a father growing up. So I just was basically raised by my grandma, Patricia, my grandpa, Peter, and my mum, Karen. So that was it. That was our family unit. And my mum was a single mum. So my whole upbringing just centered around the only male influence really in my life, sometimes from my godfather, fantastic man, still in my life right now. Godfather term's not really used nowadays. Okay, it's a bit of a old term which is slowly going out. When people have kids, they used to elect a godfather. In case of death, the godfather and the godmother, the godparents per se, would take over, and that would be someone that you trust. And that would be in a will, or that could just be a mutual consent agreement. So that's basically the idea behind a godfather, not the freaking movie from Italy. Okay, But basically, that's what it means. Yeah. So my godfather was very active in my life in terms of sport. He bought me my first baseball kit, baseball glove when I played baseball. It was very helpful. And I even had to look to him when I started growing facial hair when I was 13. You don't have a dad, right? How are you going to learn how to shave? You don't. You can't. It's not possible. You can't ask. You can't go around someone's house and say, hey, excuse me, do you have a dad that can teach me these things? So my godfather taught me to shave. My grandpa taught me certain things about life, working and sort of also like how to use a drill. Because again, we didn't really have a male influence in the family. So most of my life when I was younger was spent looking for male influence. You don't realise that till much older, of course. When you're trying to find male influence and you grow up without a dad, which is another topic we can speak on as well, which is why the family unit, doesn't matter if you have a daughter or a son, they need a male influence in their life. It's
like a
very
strong male influence.
Oh man. And look, again, I tell a lot of my friends this as well. Like they ask me a question, because again, a lot of people that I meet have a 2-parent household and they had that all the right way through.
Yeah.
There are some people that don't, and that's fine. And then I can relate to them a bit better. But when I tell them and they give me statistics, and you can look up these statistics on the net, children in a 2-parent household do better. And they're right. You can't argue that stat. You might feel a bit emotional about it and say, fuck you. I was raised by a single mum. She was that's true. She was. My mum was a single mum, hardworking, went to uni, studied at the same time as well as working, a whole lot. That's commendable. That's like you need a fucking medal. You know what I mean? Like to just achieve that type of stuff.
Right.
But again, in the grand scheme of things, who cares apart from who you're telling? You know what I mean? It's only worth something to you because you know what happened. No one else is going to. But I tell people how I was raised and statistically all these averages, and they go, fuck man, and you made it and you're a success. You bought a house, you settled down, you had a wife, you had kids, you did all these things, you traveled. Yes is the answer, and a lot of people can just turn to drugs and fall by the wayside with no guidance in their life, and again, the reason I'm here sitting across from you now, again, my grandpa, my grandma, my mum, yeah, simple as that. So having old generational people in your life is worth its weight in gold, and that's seldom happening nowadays as well with grandparents. They're not really as actively involved as they used to be, especially in the 90s.
What do you mean by that? What do you mean by that? Like, you mean here in Australia or like in the West?
No, I mean all over the West. I mean absolutely all over the West. Again, I'm not just speaking as a term of living in one state, one country and just generalizing, but the grandparents that I grew up with, they would take me to football training, to the doctor, they would take me to the dentist. They were like parents. It wasn't a budgeted time frame with like an itinerary on the wall where it's like, right, Monday I'll have, Sam at 5 o'clock, but I'm watching TV at 9. So, pick him up. It was just a thing where it was known that, right, you are blood related offspring.
Yep.
I'm going to have you. You're going to be in the life. I'm going to teach you things. We're going to interact. We're going to go out. I can rely on you, in other words, accountability, within the family unit, whereas nowadays I don't see that.
It'd be interesting to see, like, when you say that, like, because your blood, like your blood with your grandfather.
Yeah.
Well, not godfather, actually.
No, that's right.
Yeah.
And look, God bless him, he has 2 kids of his own to 2 different women, and he's active. He's there for both of them. Right? So that's saying something, isn't it? That's absolutely saying something about the man, about the person. How many people would do that? Not many. There's a lot of people that father kids and are not there for them. Right?
Some would run away.
More nowadays. Again, I'm not saying it didn't happen in the 80s and 90s, but more nowadays. I used to go around people's houses, side tangent, which is something we'll do today, because when I speak, I go off a lot of tangents, all right? You've known me a long time now. A lot. When I used to go around people's houses, man, and my mum will listen to this and she'll attest to it as well, they're like, fuck, there's a father, and there's a mother, and you same bedroom? It was like, and this is like when I was like cognitively starting to realise this shit, 9, 10, 11, 12, those types of years, whether you call them formative or not. I think they're all formative years up until you're like, 25 nowadays. But I used to go around people's houses and see a 2-party system within the structure of the house, and I'll be like, what the, you know, it mind boggled me.
Like different opinions, you mean?
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
Of the father
and the mum and
mother.
the dad were arguing, but they weren't really arguing to the sake of like, you know, like crazy shit. They were just having a little tiff, and I was like, wow, you know, this is just crazy.
And when was that? What age were you when you kind of like discovered that?
8 or 9, I'd say.
Okay.
8 or 9, yeah, would have to be, yeah. I used to hang out with a good close friend of mine who I've known since kindy. We've lost contact now, but he was very, very nice family orientated group of people, and they had cousins, they had aunties, they had uncles, right? They had the whole spectrum, Nico, the whole spectrum of family. And they would take you in and they would, you know, treat you right. You're friends with this person, therefore you are basically equal to this kid, right? And we would go around the house, we would play, we would go away, we would go on trips, and it was fantastic. It was absolutely fantastic. And just seeing that family unit together, it was a total mindfuck. But man, you know, I look back now and just smile. I just like, man, I got to experience that. You know, it was just really good.
And do you think most kids nowadays don't experience that because of the broken household kind of thing?
I think so. Not to say they can't come out of it on top, you know, because it definitely makes you a tougher person. It's made me a tougher person. What's to say that I would have been a different person to how I am now? Right. You know, shaping how it is. You know, we can talk about William Hippel, von Hippel.
Right.
About him. Yeah, exactly. You know, his argument of the fact that do you raise kids or you just guide them?
You mean nature versus nurture?
Absolutely. You know, and what would you say to that?
Well,
I would say
I actually have William von Hippel's book. I haven't really read it to an extent because I've got a long books to read, right? But all I know is that he says that it's all nature. The nurture component part is
it's going to happen anyway, no matter what happens to them.
Don't take my word for it, right?
This is where I get a little bit sketchy with that because it's going to happen. So with trauma, what's the best way to get over trauma? Go back out and do the thing that scared you and that caused the trauma. Yeah.
Facing your problems.
Facing your problems. That's something I do with my daughter. So my daughter, being on the autism spectrum, she has trouble going into shops, shopping centres, confined corridors and spaces, and we're trying to hash out why. And we have to look at the reasons why that is. And I might be thinking to myself, lighting. Might be thinking to myself, it's a dark and narrow corridor, right? But I might be missing the actual problem here. She might be processing that corridor as it has led to somewhere previously where a bad thing has happened to her. Something traumatic. Know what I'm saying? Right? So if that's nurture, right, then how do I get her out of that situation?
I guess what he means by nurture is, or nature in that regard, is whoever, based on your, well, he says based on your genes, right? Based on your genes, that's who you'll become anyway. Like, you know, some people are born to be serial killers. Like, I've seen a video before of like a kid being like having, you know, murderous tendency. But I'm not sure which video it is, but it was years back. And
old Sam would disagree with you. New Sam would agree with you right now, from what I've seen.
Would?
Yeah, I would agree with that. Yeah, absolutely. You know, I mean, because I just think they lack empathy, and I think they're born without an empathetic gene. Whatever triggers that neuron in the brain to fight empathy, I think it's missing.
So if you argue nurture, right? Can you nurture it? Like, can you take care of that kid so he doesn't become like that, or you know?
If they're lacking the gene, I'm sure over about 4 decades it could be done. But in the short term, before he actually becomes a murderous person, maybe not. You know?
Yeah, I was on another podcast about this, but with I think it might be with Joe or with Chris. I'm talking about but I forgot about it. It's a few podcasts.
The interesting with serial killers, I don't like to, since becoming a dad, you become soft, right? I've spoken to other dads about it, you become a little bit, you don't want to admit the world is sort of like that because we live in a bit of a bubble. We live in a great country, we live in a great state. This is where we're living right now. So, having travelled and seen some shit, trust me, this is fantastic. I can have a big car on big roads. I can live a great life here, good quality. But having seen few serial killers and what they're about, I don't like to give them option what they do or what they've done, because we like to make light of that, like I say, or let's sell a book, you know, and the profits. You can't tell me all the profits aren't going to somewhere along the line, filtered and funneled down to what that person did, you know. And you've got to think of all the victims as well, and those people have to live with that every day because they're survived by their parents or their children regardless, you know, and they have to live with that shit every day. And I wouldn't personally like to be seeing that on a Netflix 2-part special, you know.
Yeah.
But it's interesting to study in terms of a podcast.
Don't they agree to it? Like when
a lot of
families victims.
Yeah, they do. They do. They could see it because it starts off with, again, just paraphrasing, but it starts off with animals. They torture animals to start with, and they get involved.
Yeah,
with that.
yeah.
And then that sort of breaks that sort of cycle in their brain.
Isn't that like like a clue to what their psyche is?
It is
when they're like killing animals and.
It is absolutely. Yeah. And could you imagine that in the 60s, 70s, and 80s with with what was known then versus what's known now? I'm not saying we're that far ahead medicine-wise, but fuck, we were basic back then in terms of diagnoses and figuring stuff out then. We were basic back then, man.
Oh, actually, I remember it now. I think it was Chris Williamson.
Oh,
I told you
yeah.
Wisdom. Yeah. He was talking to a guy. He was talking about he did an experiment like to see who were the psychopaths were. Like he even included himself in the
to be fair, to be unbiased.
Yeah. So when he was looking through the brain scans, like was like, oh, this guy doesn't have the empathetic gene.
Off the scale.
Yeah. So this guy doesn't have the empathetic gene.
Yeah.
And he was going, out of these, I don't know, 100 people, like he was talking about, oh, this guy doesn't have the empathetic gene, so there was like a psychopath in the study, and he found out it was him. Shit. Yeah. Shit.
So what's stopping him? Conscious bias. What's doing it?
So I don't know, man. Maybe nurture. Maybe there is something.
Look, with nurture versus nature as a whole, if you break it down, so it's like, what would be to back to play devil's advocate for a minute. So I believe everyone should have a child, right, and father offspring. That's just a basic general view. It is such a great joy, okay, to just be a father and be a parent. It just takes so much brain power to just think, shit, how selfish and what the fuck was I doing before I had kids? You know what I mean? Like the general population. I'm not talking about the 1% that like to strive for that absolute career that defines their life. I'm talking about just people with jobs. Yeah, it's so good to be a parent, and it's just a joy, and you can't know it until you experience it, right? Unless you have like a younger brother like yourself, and like again, the differences in age were pretty vast, so you could at least see him at that young age, you know, and you can sort of see what I'm talking about. But why in the hell would I birth a child? Just go, right, nature, go. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? Like my dad did to me. I know what you mean. Do you know what I mean? Because none of my personality traits, well, I say none, some of them manifest and come out, and I go, fuck, that's not my dad. You know, I don't know where that came from. You know?
Like what?
Yeah, I started seeing my dad again when I was 18, so at least I can sort of say, so 18 to like say, let's say 25. I had a very good relationship with my father, right? Yeah. Very strong. I made contact, re-established it, did the whole thing, just for shits and giggles, to be honest with you, you know, and figure out where you came from and all that. And he was great. He introduced me to my German relatives, and it was great for a time period, but I digress. But he never raised me. But there are still things and traits that he does to this day that I have. And my wife picks up on them too and goes, shit, you like your dad. You don't even know you're doing it.
Like what? Like what traits? Like
I would say short-temperedness, right?
Oh, okay.
And mannerisms. I would say those two things are the first ones.
Is your dad full German? I didn't realize.
Yeah, full German.
He's full German.
Full German.
Maybe that's why.
From Stuttgart. From Stuttgart. Yeah, I know. They don't have the best history, do they, mate? Yeah. You know?
I don't really know. I never met like full German.
But you got to remember though, like you can say full German, but once you leave it, so he left in 1972 at the age of 24.
Right.
Right? 72, 73. I don't want to, I'm paraphrasing the dates. Doesn't matter.
The Berlin Wall is still up.
Still up?
Yeah.
Berlin Wall didn't come down 89, 90?
86?
No. 86 I was born. 89, 90.
Okay.
89, 90.
89.
Yeah. So yeah, it was still up, but again, he was from the south, so he wasn't from that part. That was only surrounding Berlin. The west of Germany, that wall surrounded.
So was the south considered West Berlin?
No, West Berlin was
West Germany,
upper. So if you're looking at a map, sort of like the lower to upper right-hand side of Germany, of Deutschland.
Yeah, I know about the wall. I know about the Berlin Wall, but didn't they also split Germany too?
Germany was split after World War II ended. Because again, you've got to remember that it wasn't just the Americans that won the war. The Russians also basically won the war.
Yeah, basically they banded together to fight.
Segregated the country into 3 to 4 parts. You had the south, where my dad was from, which he was very lucky. It was overrun by the Americans, right? And they set up camps and bases. And when I say camps, I don't mean as in Auschwitz. I mean as in like actual camps where they could, rebuild a nation, rebuild a country, and also get a bit of money on the side as well, because that's what the Americans do. They love to profiteer. Then you had the other quadrant, top left, right, Britain. And then the other part was all Russian, right? Surrounding the West.
So most East Germany was all Russian. Yeah, basically.
Establishing their form of communism over an already totalitarian state post-World War II.
Yeah.
Their version, because at the end of the day, Stalin won.
Yeah.
He won.
Yeah.
Pure and simple. He won the war, he helped. Yeah. That's what happened. The troops, they had more manpower versus less manpower. Whether it's tactics, whether it's just manpower versus manpower, whether the war from Germany's part was lost based on just stupid, incompetent bumbling, which is partly true.
Isn't that like Russia has always has a history of like losing all the time at the start and then winning because they're throwing so many bodies.
Correct, absolutely. And you see that happening now, don't you?
Yeah.
You see that absolutely.
I don't know what's going to happen in the Ukraine-Russian war.
Again, you'd be a fool to want Russia to win, to be honest with you.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. You'd be a fool to want communism to prosper. Anyone who thinks otherwise is, got rocks in their head. Or they're just very young and ill-informed. Simple as that. And that's what's good about you. Is when I first met you, you were young and I thought to myself, oh fuck, here we go. So I'm 10 years older than you. I thought, he's going to have some wacky fucking opinions, because what I'm used to hearing from a lot of people is wacky shit. And if I'm raised by my grandpa, right, who taught me about the war and history, so an old type of view, which is a great view, to be honest with you, history repeating, so it was great to get that perspective. And then from 18 to 25, sitting with my dad and listening to the way he talked about communism, about what life is like in Germany, man, we got a fucking goodie. Don't want that to take over. You really don't. Otherwise, then you're going to have your left-wing people just running amok going, oh shit, maybe it's not so good.
So you thought that was left-wing, kind of?
A little bit. Yeah, I don't know. Again, anybody who says that they're not going to be prejudiced towards someone else, or stereotypical is a better word, prejudice is a bit too racially motivated, but if you're going to be stereotypical, we all stereotype each other, man.
Yeah.
Based on look, but until you really get to know the person, then you're like, fuck,
Oh yeah, dude, I thought you were an airhead. Like, I was like, who's this guy? He's so loud, man. Just talking all the time. Jeez, shut up.
I know. I don't know where it comes from, to be honest with you. My dad's a little bit loud. My mum's very soft-spoken and quiet. So, again, nature versus nurture.
Yeah.
Was it just somewhere far back in my, ancient bloodline on German side, or on, I say Australian, but they came from England. So was it far back from there? Was there someone in my family that was a loudmouth and just, very confident? Who knows? Or maybe I'm the first. And these are the questions I rattle my brain with, nearly weekly. Where do these traits come from?
Yeah.
I didn't just go to school and learn how to be loud and confident. They just come out, don't they?
I think, that's a good point. Like confidence and being, I guess, extrovert. You're a very extroverted person. But you also like your alone time.
I do.
You also like your alone time.
Again, and if you listen to Jordan Peterson, he would say that's introverted, wouldn't he?
Yeah.
He would say that's the definition of introvert. Because once you've given yourself completely, you are just drained. And I like to go home and just relax with my daughter and put my feet up and watch TV. And that's the definition of introvert. But yet, when I'm surrounded by people,
I think it's we all have extroverted, introverted sides to us, but one is more dominant than the other. But do you think as you grow older, it's kind of like you introvert, or is that
good
as
point.
a person?
Well, good point.
Right. But hold on. For example, me, I used to be really introverted. I used to be really introverted. I wouldn't go out, but I don't know if it was just being new to the country and not having a lot of friends to start with. Like we migrated high school, right? So I had to finish my high school year, but
that would be the worst time to migrate to a country when you're going through fucking changes.
Yeah.
Physically, mentally, emotionally.
Or it might be a good thing. I guess,
it's true.
Yeah.
Out of the, just straight into the fire. Just go, flourish, have fun, bye.
Yeah. So it was a strange time. I was like playing.
And you spoke English before you came here,
I did.
didn't you?
I did speak English. So the Philippines is very maybe even a first to some.
It's the first. It's the world language now, isn't it?
Yeah. Maybe Chinese soon.
Sorry, France.
But it's difficult when you migrate.
Yeah.
At that stage, because I had it was a journey, man, finding yourself and also finding like real people like yourself that
like-minded individuals.
Yeah, just like-minded individuals.
That you can just be yourself around.
Yeah, and
not easy these days, is it?
Yeah, and
not easy.
As you said, like you thought I was a lefty, right?
Yeah.
I mean, there are good points on both sides, but I feel like you don't have to be radical on both ends. I think if you become radical on both ends, it kind of like you close yourself off on the other ideas that the left has or the right has, whichever where in the spectrum you're in politically.
Yeah.
Right. So I was kind of like on the left camp before, but I also found good views on the right. But I still find like the left with socialism and all that. There are some good. I guess,
there's aspects to it that work.
There are aspects,
and whether they're designed to make sense or not, just like say Dianetics, Scientology.
Yeah.
It's designed to make sense, or Mormonism, because it's trying to catch. Because again, it's a structure invented by a person.
Yeah.
Whether you say it's Karl Marx or you can say someone else, for example, it's designed by a person. Say that again. Designed by a fucking person. Yeah?
Yeah.
With a brain, who probably had a set of ideas that he wanted to implement and then go forth. And then people look at it as doctrine, and that's the wrong way of looking at it. But there are some ideas in there that make sense, and it's scary because if it's designed to make sense, you start to question yourself if you start believing it, or at least I do anyway, because I would look at that as all religion and think, this is designed by a person.
Yeah.
And if it starts to make sense to you, you think to yourself, right, is this true? What was true about the person that actually designed this? And why is it true? And why is the scary one? Because that opens up a whole new set of rules. Yeah. Where it's like, I'm starting to follow this trend. I'm starting to follow this. But hang on. Does this actually work? Maybe not. And look, having a child with autism, there are aspects of socialism I like, because at the end of the day, you want the child to succeed. I want my daughter to be happy, first and foremost, but I want her to have a purpose. Because without purpose, again, you're going to sit at home, just go into an absolute ball of depression with nothing to do. Idle hands are the devil's playtool.
Right.
Yeah? She's got to have purpose, right? And that's what I'm set out for. Again, my life's mission. It sounds fucking corny as hell, doesn't it? But I don't have any other topic or word.
What do you mean corny?
Because when you, I feel like there's a knock at the door. Hello, Sam, Mormonism. Life's mission, fucking life's mission, But it is my goal in these early stages up until 18 to get her where she needs to be. Because at the end of the day, she's already had everything thrown at her that could possibly go wrong, right? In terms of, social. Because again, autism, we should define what autism is at the end of the day, right? And again, it comes under social, right? A social problem.
Yep.
But then underneath that, there's subheadings: speech delay, ADHD, global developmental delay. Go on. Behavioural, right? Sensory processing, auditory processing. My daughter has a handful of those things I've just mentioned. But I've got to look at all of these things, not just autism, right? Autism's an easy thing to solve if it's just social. I've seen kids on the spectrum, right? And they can go out and they can converse. They can't make full eye contact. A lot of the time they'll break eye contact, right? But our society is set up on social constructs. You spoke to me at the gym and I just didn't look at you and I just looked at the mirror, right? And just carried on about my day. What would you think? You would think, fuck, what's going on with this person? You know what I mean?
Mm.
But the good thing about autism is I wouldn't care. So my daughter doesn't care if she hasn't had a good interaction with a person. She's happy to do her own thing. She's happy to be herself, play by herself, and all those things. What I'm here to do is to teach her social skills for the world, for when she is thrust upon it. Right? And that's the main thing.
I actually wanted to go back on that because you said,
of course,
because you kind of treat your daughter, you challenge your daughter.
Absolutely.
Is what I'm getting, right?
Yeah.
So I guess it depends on the parent as well.
Mm.
Do you feel like most father figures, like having a strong father figure, like father challenging kids, right? Like you're doing is making them better kids in the like better people in the long run.
I hope so.
Because did your mom ever challenge you? Is my question. Like, I don't know if she was a tough mom or.
At times, yeah, absolutely, at times, yeah.
Because I find that some moms can be a bit, or maybe dads, can be a bit soft on that regard, that they don't want their.
She was a protective mum, right?
Yeah,
I would, if I was to look back now, with hindsight being 2020, I would say she was protective. I would say again, I didn't catch public transport by myself till I was probably about 13, 14. You know, and maybe that was partly me. I wasn't exuding confidence at that stage. You know, I didn't come out of my shell, I suppose, until I was about 16, 17. Getting a good group of friends and learning about drinking and social skills and going out.
Right.
And, you know, and it's just like when you walk into a gym for the first time, it's fucking daunting, especially when you're like, you know, young male. And at that time, I was.
You see all the other.
Oh man!
You see all the other jacked.
Fuck man,
dude.
But it's great. It just gives you so much confidence, man. You know. And I was a very underweight teenager. And then I learned about, oh fuck, this is nutrition. This is eating. Oh fuck, you know. No, and again, I don't want to say this is pre-internet. I'm not that fucking old. But shit, 56k dial-up. I'm not loading up pages every 5 seconds on my phone.
Yeah.
You know, I had to sit down at a computer. If we could, you know, if we had the internet at that stage, because it used to run out, you know, and find out shit. And what's to say it was the right information? You know, now these kids have got no excuse, in my opinion, to find out information. No? They've got no excuse. But I digress. I would say my mum was I want to say mollycoddled. Have you heard that term before? Where they
what's the term?
Mollycoddled. Where they wrap
How
you
do you spell that? I don't know.
I struggle to spell my name, all right, mate? So it's not going to happen. But it's basically like wrapping a child in cotton wool and not letting them out into the world, you know, and protecting them. You know, I don't want to say overbearing because that's unfair, but it's just sort of like making sure what they're doing is the right thing, but you're deciding the right thing.
Wait. What word did you say it was? I'm going to try.
Mollycoddled. Type that in. I don't know if it's a British expression.
Mollycoddled. Is that like a slang or something?
Sounds great with your accent. My accent's terrible for that.
Oh, like mollycoddle.
Yeah, there you go.
Treat someone indulgent or overprotective. Okay.
Yeah, there you go. So I'm half right with my Oxford dictionary meanings. Fantastic. It's been a long time since I've read a dictionary, but thank you very much. Yeah. So again, my grandma was very similar to that as well. You know, I mean, they'd still come watch me play sport, or they'd watch me do something dangerous. But
yeah, see, that's what I'm.
But you have to do dangerous things, don't you?
Exactly, and then I feel like that's the father side of things.
Yeah. Yeah.
The more dangerous, more. Yeah. I guess. Yeah. More testosterone, but everyone has testosterone, even women.
Absolutely.
Right, women have more testosterone, I think, more than estrogen.
They do.
Right. Yeah. So, anyway.
As long as they don't have an imbalance. As long as there's no imbalance, then that's true for the general population of females.
Yeah.
But a lot of them, right, do not have that. Okay? I don't want to say something as vain as early menopause and stuff like that, but again, they can have very nurturing tendencies and very like outrageous tendencies.
And that's the thing with I feel like mom, especially my mom, can be a bit overprotective, but they only want what's best for us, right? But also what is best for us as people, as persons.
I know.
Or like I remember what JP said, and I'm not sure if anybody watching, if they agree with me or if they agree with JP. To each his own. I think one of my friends don't really like JP, but we
It's weird.
Friends, man.
It's weird when I hear that. You know what I mean? It really is, because there's got so many videos online. Have they just watched one and gone, not for me?
Yeah.
That's what gets me. That's what gets me.
And I forgot what statue it was. He talked about the statue where Mother Mary's holding Jesus. Do you know about that? I think it was Michelangelo. No.
He's very, very religious orientated, JP. Without stating,
Michelangelo's Pieta.
Without stating he's very religious, because again, a lot of people talk about religion in such a cavalier way. Sometimes can be disconcerting to people. Because I like to just broach the subject and just go straight at it.
Okay, hold on. I'll finish my thought, right?
Go for it.
With Michelangelo's Pieta, she's holding Jesus, right? And I've watched a video before where he said that what the exact source is, but he says that if I think it was in a book or maybe it's not in the Bible, but he says that you're more in danger if you stay with me.
Because he's not going to learn any skills.
Yeah, because
he's not going to go out.
The mother knows if you stay with me, then it'll be more dangerous for you as a person, because you won't learn, as you said, you won't learn the skills of life because the mother is overprotective. So it's like the mother holding Jesus is like a symbol of, I guess, liberty, like trying to set them free. Yeah. From their clutches, because
And at what point do you think that they're ready? I don't think even the mother would know.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean? I don't think they would even know. They'd just randomly just go, yeah, you know what? No, see you later. But I think when the kid starts to pull away, when I started to pull away, I think that's when it's the time. But that's a good way to broach into back to the subject of autism again, because with an atypical child, a term meaning you or me, without a neurological disadvantage or disability, meaning atypical, you and me. That's fine.
You don't have a neurological disability?
Not yet diagnosed, all right? Some would disagree. But see, that's the thing with my humour as well. I can make fun of all this shit all day long, all right? I've got a very warm, very dry sense of humour, all right? Not Patrick Bateman style, but still at least pretty damn fucked up. But with you and me, we get that. We get to go out into the world. We get all the, advantages of this type of stuff, without any of the disadvantages. We can just go out, fuck up. Okay, I've learned. With a kid on the spectrum, they can make mistake after mistake, and sometimes they won't even learn that that's a mistake or a behaviour pattern. Right. So it's hard to teach them how that is a mistake or where we're going forward. And again, it's not all autism, because there's levels. I'm not sure if you're aware of that. In England, they don't have levels. In Australia, we put levels on kids with autism.
I think, yes, I am aware of that, because my aunt is a teacher. So teaches kids in the spectrum.
I'm sure in the future, with the way things go, they'll probably get rid of levels and they'll meld it all into one big fucking ball, which I don't like, because I do like to compare. Because I think levels are great to compare. I think
there is levels to it, right? Because
there is, but they've abolished levels. So like my daughter can talk, okay? But she can't talk full sentences. She speaks to her own. He fully understands what she's doing. I can say to her, go open that fridge, get yourself something to eat. She'll go do it. But she won't say, okay, Dad. She won't be a responsive communicator because of the global developmental delay that she has developed. Right? With me? So again, this is very hard to explain to people who don't know anything about autism, and to repeatedly explain it to people over again. It can be very frustrating, but I like doing it, again, because I know about the subject. I like to learn about the subject.
Well, I think not a lot of people know about it, right?
Look, I mean, I had Paige when I was 29. I didn't know about it. When you become a parent, you're thrust into this world. You're just thrust. Some people go ass backwards, stumbling into it. They have a kid. Some parents I see, they could just be the most unhealthy, weird people in the world, and they'll produce an offspring that is completely, have the best genetics, right? No neurological disadvantages, no problems whatsoever. Lucky, right? Why does that happen? Who knows, right? And then other people can be the fittest couple in the world, right? and they have a child with neurological disadvantages. Either Fragile X syndrome, autism, Down syndrome, things like this. So again, and that's where going into these things as a young parent is good, because my brain is still at that stage where I want to learn. I want to keep learning about these things and figure it out. But if I had a kid, say at 18, and this happened, I wouldn't know what to do. I wouldn't be set up. I wouldn't have a family to tackle these issues.
If you're a kid, if I had a kid at
18, oh yeah, and it happens, man. It bloody happens. A friend of ours had a kid at 18 that was on the spectrum. My God, man. You know what I mean? Like, you've got to have a good family unit behind you. Give that kid stability, because kids with autism, they love routine and structure. That's just how it is. They go hand in hand. And it's good to break that up for a while, because, I mean, my daughter loves routine. Bedtime to brushing teeth to getting ready for school to eating, all those things, But again, I'm doing that for her. I can't always do that.
And when something breaks in routine, does she throw a fit? Or
she does, yeah, absolutely. Because as I just said, they love routine. They love having that type of stability there all the time.
And they're like Sheldon Cooper.
Absolutely. And he's a high functioning person on the spectrum.
Yeah.
Okay. He's very high functioning. So again, if we're going to take a fictional character, let's just pretend he's real for a second. Right? We'll take a fictitious character, pretend he's real. The parents would not have been working as hard to get him to do things.
Right.
Now, what I mean by that, wash dishes, toilet training, playing, going into a shopping mall and not running across a road, realizing that there's cars on the road. Okay. So my daughter needs extra help to make sure that this is a traffic situation, this is a traffic area, and she won't run and get hit by a car. Because knowing and understanding those two things there, okay, that could take a whole year to figure out for my daughter. I could tell her knowing, the understanding might take 6 months. You know what I mean? So I've got to have all my time, and my wife as well, to break down to her what a simple traffic thing is. With Sheldon Cooper, his problem was what? Social. Didn't understand one thing about social problems and ramifications. He didn't understand how to have a conversation without saying, "Oh, is your mum dead?" And he'd laugh, And that is true. I've seen it with kids on the spectrum. They do act a bit like that, But hence why they go on to do amazing things, is because they can their brain is wired as such that they see the world differently.
They're focused on one thing.
Absolutely. Yeah. And Peterson will attest to this. If you ask a question, what does the future hold for kids on the autism spectrum? For high functioning and just underneath that, I have an answer. For everything below that, I don't have an answer, man. And that's what scares me. I don't have an answer. But the top two echelons, I do. They can go in front of a computer, have a computer job. They need less breaks, okay, because they can work so focused, because they're stimulated by doing what they love. Let's just say it's computers, for this argument's sake. So I understand. Again, they might not be the best communicators, but they are absolute workhorses in their environment. They might have different tendencies that manifest again, but this is a scary part for my wife and I, is like, what is there for the lower end of the spectrum? My daughter is level 3, okay, which would be considered, a very high rating.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
It's not in the middle or anything?
No.
Okay.
No. There's just, if she gets speech within the next few years, I will lose all stress. I'll be able to, go out into the world and just not stress about life. I can live a pretty normal life. But when I'm at work or when I'm out in the gym, you always have it in the back of your mind. I'm listening to other people's problems and I'm trying to care as much as I can.
Okay.
But at the same time, I always have in the back of my mind my daughter and what she's going through.
Can you just plug that in?
But yeah, so it's always in the back of your mind. Okay, to answer your question, always in the back of your mind. You try.
Well, yeah, you're a parent, right? So
look, I try to explain it as best I can. As just, it's not me that's going through this alone. Autism rates at the moment are 1 in 40. 1 in 40, and within the next decade, guess what? 30. Why are they going up?
Man, I really can't tell you. There is something that's happening.
Oh yeah, I know. There is something that's happening. Agreed. Yeah. And it's frustrating because you don't know these things.
It'd be good.
I wouldn't change my daughter for the world. Just on that topic, I wouldn't change her for the fucking world. If you could give me a cure tomorrow for it, wouldn't do it. Her personality is her personality. But the fact that we are this far into the human evolution and we've only mapped 25% of the human genome, give me a break.
I want to come back to that in a bit, but I wanted to ask you a question on, like, because if so your daughter's a bit more focused on like the art side, is that?
I would say
I see you sometimes in your stories, right?
Yeah,
you play music and all that stuff.
Yeah.
So she's more on that side of things. But is she okay socially as well? Like,
again, I would say she would be a 3 or 4 out of 10 socials if I was to put a statistic on it. No, I like statistics, but again, it hurts to say that, but that can come later. Again, it's parallel based play, so she won't interact with another kid. She might just, again, for kids, they notice these things. It's a really interesting dynamic. And when you go out into a public arena and you see other kids and they play, and the parents can just leave them and do what they want. They can leave them and just go have a coffee and chat about, whatever the fuck they want to do in their life. And the kids are just playing and interacting with themselves. I'd have to be with my daughter to make sure that she's interacting perfectly with the kids.
Right, okay.
Staying with the group of kids, right? And also she's happy because she might have a situation where a kid takes something from her and that's it. Auditory and sensory processing gets switched off, right? So sensory will be, so once auditory goes, sensory goes as well, if that makes sense. They go hand in hand. All right, so once you switch off auditory, your sensory's shut down. Okay, so then making the social situation what is happening. Again, I'm a great parent, but even I can't switch that back on. That's okay, sweetie. Come on back out. Let's retool. We'd have to recalibrate for at least an hour, maybe an hour and a half. Do a task that she likes, something that stimulates her, right? Then reintroduce.
And is that learning process, like you said, is a long time because the feedback of failure is kind of different.
That's a good way of putting it. The feedback of failure. I don't think she would know I don't think she would understand quite what. I think she'd have a failure mechanism already inbuilt, but I don't think she'd understand what failure is. In terms of like a dictionary meaning.
Right.
If she can't do something, then she would get frustrated, and the frustration would manifest into shutdown mode, right? That's the best way of putting it.
Okay.
Or not overcoming mode, right? Like learning.
So that's what overwhelms.
So that's why we have to teach her. Overwhelming. So that's why we have to teach her how to overcome that. And it's not always easy because, again, hence what I just said about the shutdown. Right? Because that's a really good time for, for the neurological pathways to open up and her to take something in. You've got to strike while the iron's hot. Because she's all about quality, not quantity for learning, my daughter, right? She'll do things to an extent and then she'll learn in short spaces. Now, you may ask me, has she retained that? What's been taught? I don't know. I don't know at this stage. But she is learning because I see changes in her behaviour and I see changes all the time. She'll be 7 in a couple of months. So I've seen a vast difference from the school that she's at to when she was at kindy, and it's been fantastic. But again, there's also regressive autism as well, which is another side one.
Regressive autism?
Regression.
I've never heard of that.
No. So kids on autism spectrum can regress. Okay? They can have a neurological regression, okay, which is inbuilt into them, or they can regress just from not wanting to do the task and you don't know why, right? And you can look that up. It's really interesting. And my daughter...
is a condition in which a child appears to develop typically, but suddenly begins to lose speech and social skills.
Yeah. So a lot of kids... So my daughter got diagnosed between 14 and 16 months. We didn't even know she had autism. Know nothing about it. And a really good pediatrician picked up on it. And it was really hard to hear. It's just breaking. You didn't believe it. You go through the denial phase, the grieving phase. And parents of kids on the spectrum, they constantly grieve. Tell you what I mean by that. So say you lose a loved one. Okay? Say you lose someone close to you. What happens? You grieve. Then what happens? Move on. They're out of your life. Gone, aren't they? You're by yourself. You're moving on. Yeah? with a kid with regressive autism, right? Which autism, my daughter regressed actually severely when she was about 16, 17, 18 months. She had heaps of words and then the words just left, right? I'm constantly grieving, yeah? Because she's losing the ability. She's still in my life, isn't she? She's not like a dead family member where we've moved on. So that is what the grieving process of autism is for all these parents out there. You constantly see other kids that just pick things up instantly. Meanwhile, you have to put in this amount of time to get this. You follow along?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah.
And I appreciate you sharing that, man. That's not easy.
No, it's not. It's not. But it's good to just get it out and say it once,
Yeah.
you know, as a standalone podcast. It's great because to say these things to people all the time, and again, how many people do I encounter in my daily life? New people. Fucking all the time, man. You know what I mean? All the bloody time.
Well, yeah.
Some you keep, some you want to throw away.
Yeah.
Let's be real.
Yeah.
There's some people that I've got in my head right now an image of. I'll probably throw them away. You know what I mean? Because we go through friends all the time. Some are value, some are not. And I've got to decipher that value. You know? It's as simple as that.
Mm-hmm.
But in order to have this conversation to someone that doesn't know autism, or they just think of, as, a disorder as all the same, how long you got?
Huh?
2 hours? I've got to talk to someone for 2 hours. Not you, but someone else I'm meeting. You know what I mean? It's really hard to get out, and explain. And if we have an interaction in the park and my daughter and me are with them, I'll give them the quick rundown version. But if they already know about it, autism, and what your child is going through, then it makes life so much easier, man. Simple as that. But again, I'm not one of those parents that is going to raise my child different. I'm going to raise her as if she is atypical. We're going to do atypical things. We're going to go out to the park. We're going to go down to the beach. We're going to interact with other kids. There might be some subtle differences in what's going on, but I'm not going to stop raising her a certain way. Bugger that. Because I need to get the enjoyment out of being a parent as well. There's a selfish component to being a parent. A parent becomes a parent because they want to. They want to enjoy these things. It's great to watch your child play, and I don't have it that bad, man. If you drive to work or you drive down the beach and you're complaining and you see a kid in a wheelchair, think about your life. Think about it.
And I feel that...
Perspective.
Yeah, I feel that you have also kind of accepted it as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
it took a long bloody time, man.
Would you say you're still grieving?
Absolutely, yeah.
Grieving in a way that you're...
Yeah, absolutely. It goes back to what I'm saying. If I go out, say, into the public arena, again, and I say public arena being work or sport or any social activity, I'm hanging out with friends, I'm listening 70% to that person. Because in the back of my head...
Your kid.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. Because I'm coming home to the kid, aren't I? Yeah? I'm an active parent. I'm not going away. I'm not going anywhere else. I'm coming home. So I can be active within that environment. Okay, that social environment. I can be active. I can listen to, say, someone else's problems. I can take it in. And then in my head, as arrogant as it sounds, I'm sort of thinking, fuck, it's not really... You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I wouldn't say that necessarily to the person, but
Mm-hmm.
I would say, man, to walk a mile in your shoes, it's a little bit different. That's all I would say to that issue. I'm not discounting what's going on in the real world, but it is how my brain is wired currently right now. That may change 10 years from now. That may change, but
yeah.
And another interesting topic. There's a very famous footballer from Manchester United. His name's Paul Scholes.
Paul Scholes, yeah.
You know Paul Scholes?
Yeah.
Well done. Good. I always hate that living in Australia, no one knows anything about football. I call it football, not soccer.
I don't really know him as much, but I have heard of him. Yeah.
So he only recently came out. His son is 17.
Right.
So think back 17 years ago. That was like the wilderness with autism. Okay? It was the fucking wilderness, let's be real. Okay? Not much was known about it even then, all right? You couldn't communicate to people. You didn't know much about it, His son had autism, okay? But his son had a thing where he had a behaviour disorder, a violent tendencies. Now stop me if you've heard this, but some males on the spectrum, their testosterone, their hormones are out of balance, okay? And they have full-on aggressive tendencies. They will scratch, self-mutilate, self-harm. There's an interesting, lovely word for you, isn't it? Self-mutilate. Wouldn't you love to hear that at the doctors? You know, when you go to a doctor to get a diagnosis, ting, here's the grenade. I've got the pin. Go off, live your life. That's what they do. That's how doctors diagnose. That's how they give it to you. Like a fucking grenade. And you go off and live your life, right? So Paul Scholes, an elite footballer, still had to train, still had to maintain a family unit, all while his son was mutilating himself and himself. Yeah. So he would come into the change room, and he only recently just come out with this. Okay, so this is, you can look this up. It's fantastic. Worth a listen. Paul would have scratches here, bite marks here, and all the family were trying to do was cut the kid's fucking hair. Because it's sensory. Okay, so a haircut can be very sensory. All right, so my daughter doesn't like.
Oh, I thought you said cut the head. I'm like,
no, the hair.
Kill him?
The hair. This is G-rated. This is G-rated. Apart from my swearing, okay. All they're trying to do is cut the hair, right? And the kid doesn't understand. You can't just have a conversation and go, "Hey, Timmy, let's get a haircut." You know, job done. They would look at that as a violent act. Mm-hmm. They would see scissors. They would see sensory. They would see the hair getting cut, the minutiae of the hair, and it would just be debilitating.
Right.
And Paul would go into training.
Yeah.
You know, and he'd have to lie to his teammates because, again, it's like me. I'm not going to sit there when you've got your game face on. You've had a great day in life, and all of a sudden you want to explain to someone who's not listening to you about autism and what's going on. It's not worth my time, energy to say that to you right now. Maybe later. But it's not worth my mental energy to explain, oh yeah, my child's hurting himself. What'd you try and do? Oh, haircut. And then that person that you're telling might say a crass comment. Oh yeah. You know what I mean?
What you mean, like a lot of people misunderstand.
They do.
They don't want to understand. Maybe.
I think, yeah. But it's not just that. But it's like, is it your job to explain that to people? It's two-party system on that one. I'm for and against on that. Yeah. But I don't want to give my mental energy to that person. And I think the way Paul explained it is he just sort of buried it, and that's his choice. He sort of dealt with it by burying it and only speaking about it 17 years after the fact.
Okay.
You know, but he had a very hard job to do. You know, a successful football team. You know, train, play, eat, as well as look after a kid that you're trying to understand. You know, on the spectrum. And remember, Nico, with autism, the future's unwritten for me and you. I get that. Yeah, blah, blah, blah. Blah, blah, blah. The future is really unwritten for kids with autism. It's really unscripted going forward. You know, you can't make any real concrete plans.
Right.
You know, and that's the scary part.
And that's what scares you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because I can't map out a set date to when she'll come out of her shell, if that makes sense, you know? Yeah, absolutely.
I get you.
Yeah.
Whew. It's like a heavy topic. I feel like you're
you're
letting yourself out, man.
It is. Oh, look, again, it's good to say, it's good to get it out, it's good to say these things. And look, again, when more people who are in the public domain come out, say it, gives me comfort. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like, do you feel like it's more on not explaining things? Because you said not explaining things to people because you don't have the energy to, right? Is it because you feel that they won't understand? Or is it more on...
Yes. Yes, short answer, yes. But also, if I'm wasting my time explaining it to someone, what good has that done to that person? You know what I mean? Mm. Like, I mean, there's no excuse now to pull your phone out. You've got everything at your fingertips. And yet people still stumble ass backwards into the wrong information and then go and spruik that information as if it was fucking fact. It's not fact, you know? So I don't want to go out there and just say these things to people. If I have a connection with the person, if I'm friends with the person, absolutely, yeah. And it's good. So I generally spend most of my time talking to people, parents, because I'm the full-time dad for my daughter, right, in terms of doing the driving and the pickups, just because of my wife's roster and my roster. I generally speak to a lot more people more frequently, you know, and those people are parents with kids on. So it's good to confide in people. But our kids are vastly different. No two are the same. There are similarities, but no two are the actual same.
Right.
Yeah.
Again, different personalities, different genomes.
Exactly.
Different
exactly. And the genomes on these things as well is what. Again, I was going to say that before. So my wife, my daughter, and I got our blood taken, and it's really quite good. Even though we live in a sleepy town of Adelaide, South Australia, the one question I asked to the head epidemiologist, right, in South Australia, I actually got to speak to her. We got our blood taken and we did a genome test. Again, it might not give the answer to me, because I knew going into it wouldn't give me answers for my daughter and why this happened. Okay? But will it help future generations? Fuck yeah. Absolutely. It will definitely help future generations. But at the same time, we had to cross off a few things that we had in our head, i.e. MMR vaccinations, Fragile X syndrome, which is another thing you can look into as well, which is a cause of autism, because there's environmental, right? There's environmental and there's genetic. Okay, so if you look up cause of autism, you'll see those two things, right? That's just a general rule of thumb. What's actually triggering it, don't know.
But you didn't have autism?
Didn't have didn't have it in the family. No, nice. I may have had it, or my wife may have had it, a distant bloodline, distant relative, because recessive genes tend to come out later on. So my dad was a twin. Okay, right. So my dad was a twin, meaning his mum, my Omar, gave birth to a twin. The other twin died at birth. My dad was born in 1955. So again, German hospitals in 1955, right, post World War II, probably not that good at delivering babies, let's just say. Let's just say the death rate was pretty high, in terms of rebuilding a country that had been bombed to shit post-Hitler, as well as, the child's upside down. So from what I was explained to by my Omar and other people I know is that the child died at birth. And my dad was the only surviving. So that gene from her wouldn't be passed on to my dad. With me, it will be passed on to me. So I went into a pregnancy thinking, fuck, I'm going to have twins here. There's nothing written in stone, of course, but that's just the way genes work.
That twin gene is usually from the mum.
Correct. Yeah. But it's passed down through the male, not through the female.
The twin gene?
Mm.
Oh, I thought it was the...
So it's me going off with a woman, having a child. Again.
Because I thought... Because my mom have twins in their family, like in their line. So that kind of makes sense.
But they actually gave birth to twins or just had the gene?
Okay. Have the gene and I think the birth. And it's me and
that's right. So when you have it, so this is what I'm saying.
Yeah,
so
but I'm not sure if it's...
No, because from what I understand, it'll be in the male part. So if you have a kid and that kid turns out to be a male, would that kid have it? Probably not. But would his kids have it? Maybe. Because that's the way that genes work. It skips generations. It doesn't get passed down directly.
Well, it says for a given pregnancy,
give me the statistic.
The odds of conceiving fraternal twins are only determined by the mother's genetics.
Right.
Maybe fraternal twins. I'm not sure about identical.
See, and that's the question I have, which can't be answered, because again, my Omar's since passed. And again, I don't think my dad can remember his birth, but I always wondered if my dad and that brother that died at birth would have been identical, unknown, So that's always another burning question you have from by past generations. Never know that. Never found that out.
Yeah.
It's quite interesting.
Yeah.
But I went into the pregnancy, just to go back to the subject of genetics. I went into the pregnancy thinking, fuck, because I knew this. I was told this from when I was young.
Yep.
You might have twins, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, fuck. And then they just implant that, wiring into your head. Your whole family talk about it for generations. You're like, fuck, I better learn about genetics. I better learn about how this is passed on. And then when I didn't have twins, I'm relieved, to be honest with you.
Right, okay, yeah.
I was quite relieved, if I'm being brutally honest, as a 29-year-old male. But
double the trouble.
Yeah, exactly right, And again, it would have been a blessing. I would have loved it. I would have taken it to a duck to water, but I was very surprised. But going back to the genetic part, when I spoke to the head epidemiologist, the test that we do here is of the same standard to the one that's in, let's say California. All right. great doctors, great medicine, practicing, head research really up there in the world. We're very lucky here where at least we have a test that's, comparable to one that's going on around. And it gave us basically nothing to why this happened. Didn't have Fragile X, right? Which is a gene that can cause autism as well as other irregularities. You can look up Fragile X. That's a really interesting gene. That's
is that
one
Fragile
of the,
X syndrome?
Correct. It's one of the syndrome is a different one, but the X gene is one of them, a chromosome that actually determines autism. And some kids have it, and they can have different facial features. So some kids with autism actually have protruding facial features, and you would lean more towards saying, right, that kid has the Fragile X gene, if that makes sense. But it basically gave us no answers. We looked at the reason why and all that, and it was just, we may take the test 10, 20 years again from now, but it's not really progressing at the way that I'd hoped.
So is it still being researched?
Of course it is. Okay. Absolutely.
Okay.
To what level? I don't think it's up there with cancer research, mate, to be honest.
Well, of course, like cancer,
you know what I mean, in terms of funding.
Yeah.
Again, this is something that's a big topic to me, but it might be not worth much to a lot of other people. And I do think there's a component related to giving children vaccinations very early on when their liver and their kidneys are still processing, and you give them these massive, and again, I've seen kids with measles and mumps, and it's not pretty. But to give them a vaccination very early on in the piece, and then just discount that can, I'm not saying cause, because I saw a very drastic change when that needle went in, when my daughter was in hospital.
Yeah, you told me about that.
She was in hospital 4 days after she had been given the MMR vaccination. And I've got to be careful with what I say here, but there is something related to that. Because where there's smoke, there has to be some sort of fire, because it keeps getting brought up. I can go away now and I can listen to people that come out of university, or they do a doctorate, right? That's a higher level doctorate, and they can say, no, it doesn't cause it. Vaccinations don't cause that. Fine, I can believe you, but then we'll always circle back around to new evidence.
I think you're right.
Because it's a live vaccine, Nick. Well, that's the thing. It's a live vaccination.
It's the same with tobacco, right?
Yeah.
It's like, but people back then didn't say, "Oh, you're not gonna cause. It doesn't cause cancer and all that stuff." And then now, lung cancer. People throat cancer.
The only difference I would say to tobacco is that it is not given to a child who has just been born.
Yeah,
right?
That's
okay.
Also true.
And I don't care if they're 17, 18 months. I don't care. That's just been born to me. I would say that, and their kidneys and their liver can't process all this. There is a certain substrata of kids that are going to get some sort of adverse reaction, pumping that amount of chemicals, let's face it, chemicals, into the body, and they're not processing it properly, and it goes straight up to the brain. That's where the issue lies. It crosses the blood-brain barrier, okay? Anybody can look this up. It crosses the barrier. I don't care how good of a doctor you are, okay? But you do. If we only know 25% of our genome, how can you tell me 100% unequivocally that this does not cause autism or other neurological conditions? How can you tell me that? If you have studied for 10 fucking years.
It'd be good to have a doctor in the podcast.
Absolutely.
And, talk
absolutely.
About that. Yeah.
And again, this is all just from pure research from me. And again, going around from doctor to pediatrician to epigenetist. I'm not just making this stuff up. This is going around and getting base reports from everyone. I've actually met doctors, I've sat down with them, but they won't go on record. But they agree with me.
Really?
Everything I've just said then, they will agree 90% with what I've said.
But it's mostly, what you're trying to say is administering MMR like that, or certain types of vaccine.
Give it to the kids later.
Give
it to them later.
Later stages of
Absolutely.
life. Okay.
Absolutely. And some very close friends of ours, they actually did. Fucking very smart, man. And again, he is next level. He's an engineer, a good friend of mine. He is next level IQ. And I didn't have that IQ at that stage to really just know what was coming. But he actually did a blood test on his son before administering any vaccination.
Right.
Can
Okay.
you fucking believe that? He did a blood test, check the kidney and liver function, because the kidneys and livers are processing these vaccinations before they go to the brain.
So he had a blood test before and after the vaccination?
Not after, just before, to make sure there was nothing wrong with his kidneys and nothing wrong with the liver.
Oh,
before giving any type of vaccination. I don't care if it's a live vaccine like MMR or if it's freaking just whooping cough, a dead vaccine, right? I don't care if it's flu vaccination, but MMR is a live vaccination. As it stands, that is the one that is the cause of contention for most people out there. You can call them skeptics, you can call them conspiracy theorists, you can call them whatever you like. There is one way to shut them up. There is one way to shut all those conspiracy theorists up when it comes to MMR. Right, I'm going to tell you what that is. You can look at it up now. A double-blind placebo study. Look that one up and give me the dictionary. A
double-blind placebo study.
Yep. It's a really good way, and it will shut everybody up. But the company that does these drugs does not want to even look at that.
It's a type of clinical trial in which neither the participants nor the researcher knows which treatment or intervention participants are receiving until the clinical trial is over.
How would you do that to children? That's the only way. The only problem. How would you do that? You know what I mean? That's the hard part.
Interesting.
You wrap your head around that. So if you had a kid, would you say, yeah, inject my kid with either the placebo or the drug? But let me play devil's advocate again. If they're already going to get the MMR and these parents are so headstrong in their belief doesn't cause, fine, use them. Wouldn't you say? Use them. You know, it's just the other group of people, the other substrata you need. How do you get them? So that would, in theory, again, not a scientist, not a doctor, but reading that and stating that, in theory, that would put an end to MMR, wouldn't it? That would put an end to saying, right, this causes, this doesn't. But if there were kids starting to, develop autism type, disabilities, I don't like to use that word, necessary in this topic, then you open up another can of worms, go down another route.
I get what you mean on having, well, I guess double-blind study, having two study groups in there. So one is the placebo and one is the actually the real drug, right?
And remember, it's important to state. Sorry to interrupt. It's very important to state placebos work.
Yeah, it does.
We don't know why.
Power of the mind.
But I know it's so stupid, man. My dad gave me a book when I was 18, The Power of Positive Thinking. Terrible book, anyway. So I don't want to say that. I really didn't like that. But I was a positive thinker anyway. But I was just like, it just seemed like I was getting indoctrinated. But the mind does fucking work. It does work to think positively and go into.
Well, tell that to David Goggins.
Yeah.
Uses negativity
from fat to skinny, like that.
That's amazing.
And he always had that brain, didn't he? He always had that brain. What switched it on?
Well,
trauma, or you're going to be a diabetic. Yeah, you're going to have a heart attack.
I'm actually reading his book. Can't Hurt Me.
Oh yeah.
So his life, man, is just so fucked up.
With people like that, I really love hearing them speak. So I would love an audio book on that, but at the same time, I really love listening to the power of their message when they talk. Because I believe books are great. Books are fantastic. Autobiographies, semi-autobiographical books, they're fantastic. But I really like a story, and I like the story being told by the guy that's lived it, because it resonates with me more.
Oh yeah, with any audio.
You know what I mean? If I'm reading the words, it's in my fucking voice. And I'm like, oh fuck. If I've had a long day at work or I'm tired, I'm reading something that could be a powerful paragraph, and it just doesn't make sense. And that paragraph was meant to be said by him, someone who's a powerful person. But I'll be interesting to see your thoughts on it once you finish it, because I've listened to a lot of his stuff on his podcast. I
have listened to a lot of his stuff.
Amazing man.
Yeah.
Amazing fucking
used
man.
Used that negativity to his advantage.
Again, it drills me back. How did he become that? There would have been something that happened in his life, traumatic or otherwise, that went, fuck man, I'm gonna die at 50.
He had an abusive father.
Yeah.
So abusive father, and I think they owned like a skate rink back in America, in Illinois.
Yeah.
But that was well, you can read the book yourself, or with anyone listening. Like you could look it up, read the book, listen to his podcast, and I think there's only a few podcasts that he's on because he's a really introverted person, right? He doesn't really like to talk.
Goes back to what we just said before, doesn't it? Again, it's people can just do extraordinary things under different circumstances and pressure. But and they open up to them. But
his self-talk is actually, he's being hard on himself. Like, oh, you're pardon my he's like, you're so fat. You're like, you're so, what are you doing? You look like a clown. Like, but I wouldn't go to the exact details as to what he says to himself, but it's the meanest things he says to himself, because at the end of the day, he says that if he hears that, then nothing else can hurt, because he's the only one that can really hurt himself. Right?
I can relate to that. Yeah, I can absolutely relate to that. Thickening of skin.
Yeah.
You go to a public school, mate. That'll thicken your skin up.
Yeah.
Bloody hell, it will. It'll really.
Oh man, dude, I was really.
You learn to talk back very quickly.
I was a really I don't know if you know this, but in high school, I don't know if I told you, but in high school I was a really sensitive kid, man. Like growing up.
Yeah.
Like,
so anything could basically if someone threw the minutest rock at you, you would go, my armor.
Yeah, but I was like, I wouldn't show it, but inside I was like,
yeah. Oh yeah. When you get home, you manifest.
That's why I'm really thankful to actually. I'm really thankful to my friends who I grew up with, like, because they're really like, I don't know how here, but growing up in the Philippines, man, I was in a private school, and we kind of owned the school as well. So everybody's nice to me. Then going to a high school. Oh man, things change, man. Yeah. Nobody fucking cares. Yeah. But not that I didn't care. I actually didn't like how protective the school was, because you're the owners and all that stuff. But I didn't actually really like it, because I always like the challenge. Yeah. So when we moved to a public school, at first it was difficult, like adjusting to really harsh words and just really different personalities. Right, really tough personality.
And you don't have the tools.
That's like pushing you. I'm like,
and you don't have the tools. You have to develop the tools, don't you?
What's wrong with this guy? He's pushing me, like, but it's all just banter.
Yeah, exactly.
And if you get hurt, then that's on you.
And it's weird because again, like I say things now to people in a non-malicious way, joking, and sometimes I got to take stock in what I'm saying. But that's what I said. But that's just my nature. I've just got that type of humor. Yeah. And a lot of kids now that I met, they don't have that humor. That's gone. I don't know why that is, but they don't have that. Not bullying, but it's sort of hazing mentality, and I like to just give it and get it at the same time, because if it's funny, I'll laugh, man. If they can make fun of anything on you or about you, fuck, man. As long as it's said in a contextual, funny fucking way, I will laugh my head off, man. It's great, to make fun of stereotypes. That's the best thing that we have. But when I went to school, holy shit, that was malicious. That was said with bullying intent, what people would say to me and other people. And man, that toughened you up. And then you learn to say it back to them. And again, if you said something better than what that person, and I had a talent for saying things that were better than that bully, right? For getting to the heart of what fucks that person off. You know what I mean? I don't know where that comes from, but I had a talent to say that, But shit, man, it nearly comes to blows, because that person can't retort. They can't say anything back. So with men, it just comes to, all right, we're going to fight now. Oh shit. Yeah. It's like, fuck, I got to you. Yeah. But they didn't have any regard for me. I wouldn't go up to them. I think it's just,
would you say it's male nature? Like, really
I'd say so, yeah. And again, probably coming out of the trees of Africa, they probably did the same. Again, they probably did the same shit then too, didn't they?
They
probably did the same stuff, I'll steal your stick and push you.
But we're not advocating
violence against
bullying. We're not advocating bullying.
We're not advocating violence against monkeys. Violence against apes. They're not the same primate, but
we're not advocating bullying. We're not advocating.
Yeah, so I agree. Absolutely.
But it's just, there is a component to.
But here's one for you. Wouldn't you say that part of it is necessary? Controversially, wouldn't you say that?
I would say, because I was kind of bullied when I was a kid, right?
We all were. Yeah, we all were.
And I was like,
it's to what extent that matters, though, Nico. It's to what extent. Not that you go home and cry in the mirror and try and kill yourself. That's wrong. But to what extent are you getting bullied? That you don't do something about it. And we were, maybe not you, but I was lucky. Once it's said at the schoolyard, you go home, done. What's that in front of you? Computer. Continues. So these kids that get bullied, they go home, all there, and they just fucking get it. Keyboard warriors just keep firing it.
I think it's to an extent. To be challenged as a kid, again, like having that, like going back to what you said, you as a father challenging these things. And as a kid, right, being challenged by other external factors and deciding for ourselves on what to do, and without relying on an adult to help us. I think that's where a lot of the growth happens, right? When the parent is not there.
And again, I don't think I wouldn't put my mum and dad and say that they had necessarily the best skills to deal with that, to be honest with you. Only I had to come up with those skills. But you know what's fucking amazing about the old world versus the new world is when I was getting bullied in year 8, because I struggled with the transition from year 7 to year 8, because I was very popular in primary school, but then I get to high school and everybody's doing drugs and drinking. Yes, mate, they're doing drugs and drinking at 13. That's what happens in Australia. They did that back then. I know.
No, you're trying to.
It's fucking unreal. It's fucking unreal. And for me, being like, again, even my lifestyle now is very fucking, very self-orientated in terms of health. I don't drink. I don't do external things. Coffee's the worst thing. The worst drug I do is coffee. Yeah.
People love it now.
Not testosterone. I've been accused of that, but no. All right. But we were in the car, and my grandpa just said, "Sam, you don't look very happy." And I explained to him what was happening. He goes,
when was this?
Year 2000, 2001.
Oh, shit.
Probably 2001, I would say.
Okay.
Around about then, because I was transitioning from year 8 to 9. So the bullying year was year 8 for me. Only because, again, part of me it was brought on. Part of it was brought on, if I look back now, is because I didn't assimilate. I didn't didn't do what these kids wanted, didn't hang out with these kids. My former friends were fucking going off doing drugs, drinking and partying, and girls. Was not ready. Was not ready for that shit. They grew up real quick. I was still the year 7 boy, playing sport. That was the sign of being cool. That didn't matter by the time you got to high school about your social status. Huh?
And I think a lot of growing up, I think it's more on social status.
I think so.
And your group of friends.
Especially back then. Especially back then.
When I reflect on it now, like I hanged out. I tried to cool. In growing up in high school. Middle school, high school. Yeah. And hanging out with the crowd. Yeah. But then as you grow older, like the point is, I know. It's all about you hang out with that crowd, but then you kind of discover that you're not really that person. So
and this brings me to another book, The Art of Not Giving a.
No, I haven't read that book yet.
That's it. Yeah. And I paraphrase that book all the time. That's things from that book. That's right, because it can be misconstrued, because you might be doing a job, you might be working. You don't want to walk around like you don't give a fuck. But the way that's phrased is just walking around like nothing bothers you. That's a better way of putting it. Walk around.
Not literally not giving a fuck about everything.
Exactly. Right? And going back to what my grandpa said to me in that car ride is he said the only way to get back at a bully, to get back at these kids, is to tease them back. And it worked in the 30s and 40s when my grandpa went to school. A long time ago, 30s and 40s. And that would have been rough then. They were whipping kids back then for misbehaving. And he was right. As soon as I started teasing these people back, problems went away. Same in a workplace, it's the same anywhere. Someone's giving you shit, give it back. And don't have any disregard for their feelings, because they have had none for you and yours.
Isn't like bullying kind of like them just projecting something in their life?
Of course it is. A fear or something that's happened to them. But if they're teasing or harassing you, and again, you could look at that and say, right, they're gonna say, oh, look at you, mate, look at those. You don't have any delts, you don't have any triceps. They could look at you physically and say those things. But you could go, you could harass them back, say something back, and go, look at your teeth, that's wonky, just to make yourself feel better. But shit, man, then you look in the mirror and you go, fuck, I'm gonna go get some delts and traps, huh? You know what I mean? So they might be right to an extent, because they're projecting something onto you, or they might be jealous. So there's two ways of looking at that.
But that's also like you're dancing on the line of either living your life on their words and also what's best for you. So in the end of the day, it's more on
I'll bring back. Do we really know what's best for you?
Yeah.
I'll bring that back.
Yeah.
I'll bring it back to the nature nurture. I don't fucking know. I'm just glad that I get to grow up in a country and have all the perks of it, as well as live a great and healthy life. It's fantastic. That's the great thing. That's why when people complain left versus right, I take no notice. I don't care. It's good for a little laugh and a snifter at, but shit, man, I don't want to be sitting down watching videos about this shit every day. That's part of the problem, is they're just watching all these videos on either one side or the other side, and they're getting this bias.
I was at that road before.
I
was just watching on one side, and then I discovered the other side. I was like, really?
Yeah.
Is this really true? So, do your own research.
Yeah.
And decide for yourself on what really is, and not just leaning on one side of the story. Because
Absolutely.
a lot of that stuff happens. Even on the right, even on the left. Some people just disregard the other. Just want to believe what they want to believe.
And they get one side of the argument.
And also, it's also because of the people you hang out with, right?
Yeah.
Again, with growing up, you hang out with the cool crowd, but then you discover, these aren't really the people I really resonate with.
Absolutely.
Because you only hang out with them because of the status. But then after that, you really look for the friends and the people you really want to hang out with, because
they're there for you.
They're there for you.
Yeah.
Like, really. So that's I guess that's also one thing people, I guess, struggle with in the long run. As you grow older, your friends, decrease as well. I'm not saying everyone does, but a lot of people, especially if you're looking for just clout or looking for, like being seen as high status, most of them are like just, trying to please everybody.
I agree.
But then, if you look at their friend group, they're not, most of them don't really have friends. It's like the illusion of having a lot of friends, but not really. So,
I'll throw something else out to you. I'll throw something else out to you from my situation based on what you're saying. I can only have friends that understand my routine and what I'm going through. I can only commit to friends that really understand that. You know what I mean? Simple as that.
Right.
Because I've got to have time for me as well, but I've also got to make more time for my daughter, right? Because she's the main
family
thing.
Comes first.
So again, people without, this is why I go back to not being prejudicial towards people without kids. But again, there are some anomalies, like yourself, like your brother, that fit into my life. There are other people that are going to take me 5 hours to. You know what I mean? It's going to take me a long time, because their life is about them. My life is not about me, okay, to an extent. So in order, I've got a mate who loves playing golf. Golf is a 4-hour sport, 4 hours out of the day. It can be longer if you play in bushes and pick up balls from bushes.
Yeah.
Can be longer. Drive to the place, get your clubs out, walk, play, hit, swing. That's a 4-hour out of the day. You better make damn sure that your daughter is looked after or has someone with her, because 4 hours out your day, that's time. That's precious. That's time that I would look at and I would say, right, that's not really helpful. But at the same time, I want to keep that friendship with that person. Following me?
Do you feel like a lot of people have that spotlight effect? I think it's like prevalent.
Big time.
Prevalent.
Big time.
I feel like
big time.
But then people think like, oh, that's what he's thinking about. Or that's what she's thinking about. But then it's like going to the gym for the first time, right? You're lanky or you're fat or whatever. You don't work out. But then you go inside there and then everybody's so working out. Everybody's jacked as shit. Right?
Exactly.
And then you're like, oh man, they're judging me because I'm.
Yeah.
Maybe some do.
Yeah.
I don't know. But most of them don't really care. They're there for themselves. Like,
exactly.
Self-improvement.
Exactly right.
But to think that everybody's thinking about you is a bit it's really narcissistic.
Very. But the eyes are watching you to some extent.
Yeah,
when
they
you
are.
go out,
I guess
they're watching you to some extent. Would I go to a shopping mall with my daughter? Guess what? I'm acting like an A-list Hollywood celebrity in LA. You know what I mean? I'm looking straight ahead. I'm not looking at people staring or looking, because again, if my daughter's wearing her sensory headphones, they're looking. Don't kid yourself in any other way, shape or form. And that's where arrogance comes in, Nico. That's where having a good bit of arrogance to just being aware of oneself and your daughter and not anyone, they're going to be all right. They're going to be fucking fine. They're going to live their life. They're just going to stare and look. If I see a kid with Down syndrome or in a wheelchair, do you think I'm going to have the gall to just stare at them? I wouldn't fucking dare. You know what I mean? I don't want to make them feel uncomfortable. I want to go up to them and fucking hug them and be the best person and the best human in the world to them. Because to me, they're worth more than that atypical kid. That's just my view. They're worth more. All right?
Do you,
because they need extra help, the atypical kid will be fine.
Do you go up to the parents sometimes?
Sometimes I do.
Okay.
Yeah, sometimes. Yeah, and sometimes they come up to me as well and say nice things as well. And sometimes I get emotional about that. And I'm just like, hey man, don't fucking pity me. Do you know what I mean? Part of me's got that arrogant streak where I'm like, don't you fucking pity me, brother. You know what I mean? Because I'm doing all right. I'm successful. I've got a house. I'm doing very fucking well.
They're just saying they're on the same boat.
Absolutely. I know. But it can change your day just like that. You know what I mean? If they just say something, you know, don't pretend it can't.
I feel like we should be more as a society here in Australia. I feel like because you know, in America, when you go to America, everybody's like, "Whoa, hey man!" And
yeah,
I've been to America like for 2 weeks only. But
I'll be honest with you, on that they are the loveliest fucking people in the world.
Yeah,
I was told so many lies growing up about the Americans. I met people from the Midwest, from the West Coast, you fucking name it. They were so lovely, man. They really were. You know?
Yeah, I was in LA, man. I went to a Timberwolves game. I know the Timberwolves are kind of shit right now, but
yeah. Always been.
I was wearing a KG shirt, right?
Yeah.
A KG jersey, and some because the Timberwolves are playing against my uncle's team, the Clippers.
So you're a Clippers fan?
Yeah, he's a Clippers fan.
Why?
So, I don't know, man. You just
didn't want to go for the most popular team. You just went for them.
The Lakers.
Well, he just went.
I haven't really asked him.
Probably cheaper tickets. You know what I mean? Cheaper tickets, cheaper merchandise.
Oh, the Clippers are actually good, man.
Well, now they are. Now they are. Yeah.
But when we were there, it was like some guy was like, "Whoa, the big ticket!" And I'm like,
"Really?"
Yeah. He was like, "Nice jersey, man. The big ticket."
Just randomly out of nowhere.
Yeah,
that's great.
So great. I feel like as a society, or
we need to be doing more of that.
Yeah, because I feel like here in Australia, I feel like we don't really compliment more people. Because when you see somebody on the street, right? When you see somebody in the street and you see them wearing nice things, you compliment them. But they did that for a reason, right? Or they wore something for a reason because they like it.
Yeah.
And like striking up a conversation. But I feel like a lot of people don't really do that here, or maybe even in the UK. I feel like a lot of people are very I'm not saying.
I think it's generational. I think my generation would do that, whereas I think as the generation below yours.
Yeah, like because me and my brother, right? We went with our friend.
Yeah.
And we went outside. We just like trying to compliment people, right? Just building our confidence because I was at that stage where I really didn't want to. I realized I didn't have that social skills as much, right? So I wanted to go out,
practice your social skills, learn. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so we went out and we try and talk to people, right? So he complimented one guy who was wearing a jacket, and he's like, okay, he's gonna compliment that guy. He's like, he complimented, hey man, nice jacket, and blah blah blah. And then we left, and he's like, he's happy. Patrick's happy, like, oh man, like, so we left. We're like, yeah, good on you, man. Yeah. But the guy was like, he went back and then showed the finger. And we're like, and that's not Pat's problem because maybe the guy thought we were making fun of him.
Yeah, absolutely.
And
it depends on how the day is going for the person as well. Because if that person is like not used to that stuff and he's had a bad day, then he's just going to assume you're just taking the piss. You know? Yeah,
but the thing is, it's better to be complimenting somebody than to really, I guess,
be putting them down.
Not doing anything at all. Because you complimenting somebody, that might make their day.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Instead of saying maybe instead of saying nothing at all, right? But some people say that if you don't have anything good to say, don't say nothing at all. But that's mostly in a conversation setting. But if you see something really good, then compliment them.
Yeah, I agree. I absolutely agree. Yeah. It needs to be said, you know. But again, for you to go out and do that every day, maybe not all your social interactions. You say you have 10 a day, maybe do 2 or 3 of them. That would be fine. That would be suitable. But not every single interaction, because that would be draining on yourself. Because if you get something back that's ill-advised,
the only reason I'm saying it is because growing up, right, we talk shit a lot to each other.
Same, absolutely.
Right here, especially here in Australia.
I still talk shit.
Yeah, exactly. But then now I hang out with a lot of people who are with my same mindset, who are that positive in business and all that stuff. And when I first came in, I was like, bro, this is weird to me because they didn't talk shit or anything. Yeah, they just
got on with the job.
No, it's mostly just positive affirmation, like, "Oh, you're doing great," and they'll never. Can I? Never really thought about it. My friend here never really said.
Can I ask, were you doing great when they said that?
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Because even the smallest change,
especially with males, like, I mean, they need encouragement. And I personally need encouragement. You know, you need to have that. You're doing good. You're doing great. Because if you just get constant negativity, or even no negativity and no positivity, which you're just left in the void, you just assume you're doing the right thing. You know what I mean? So there can be too much, too little, and not at all.
Again, it depends on what you're doing.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. But I still think there needs to be some sort of positive reinforcement in life, whether that's from a friend or a loved one.
Yeah.
Whatever it is, you know, that needs to happen.
Yeah, especially again.
And your people that you're hanging out with now, your team of people, your group, do you have certain parameters you work in, like a goal at the end of the year or maybe the end of the month? You have a goal?
Yeah.
Good. Yeah.
So it challenges you. It really is. Built me as a person. Like, man, I can't really recognize myself in a year's time. I still see it. I still see the person I was, but then I don't recognize him because it's not the person I'm going to be. It's the same as you, man.
I take my hat off to you, mate. Yeah. When you first started doing all this stuff and going out with it, you're just getting shit done. It's fantastic, you know. And you're a self-starter, and not a lot of people are self-starters, and that's what's fantastic. You know, you're just doing that. You still have fun on the side. You still maintain your old friendship circle, which is great.
I try to reach out to people.
Yeah, and I have to remember to do that too, because at the end of the day, you get wrapped up in your own world, you know. But you're like, man, I need to unplug. Fuck, I need to unplug sometimes, you know, because you just live this routine life.
And that's why I kind of wanted to start this podcast, because I wanna. I was thinking to myself one day, man, I oh shit.
Yeah, I know.
Like, I feel
and
like
it's scary. Yeah. It's scary when you say that.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of, as people, right, as a person, we like to think that we know a lot of stuff, especially when we talk stuff about people, and then you realize that we don't really. This is the stuff we know, and this is the stuff we don't know. So we have to broaden ourselves to a lot of different topics.
I know, but you can't know everything. That's the thing.
That's true. You can't you can't know everything, but you can try to.
I remember when I left high school. I mean, I had the worst education known to man, because everyone in school, like, it was like my daughter's kinder. The teachers aren't designed to be prison wardens. They're there to educate. You know, and I talk about this now with my sister-in-law, who's a teacher. Fucking hard to teach, man. If all the kids are talking, you've just got to be like, you've got to do something that you weren't designed to do, right? And that's not educate, control. But you can't do that. You know what I mean? You're there to educate. The kid's there to learn. But the school system is really set up in such a way that's not really cohesive for learning. You know, it's not cohesive for taking everything in. More and more of most of what I learned was outside of school. I only learned what I was interested in, Nico. I only learned anything that I wanted to. You know, whether that be war, sport, health, all that type of stuff. I only learned what I was interested in. I didn't learn what I was not interested in, which again is just as important, I would say, if not more. You know, to know someone else's perspective, right? And to know also more about history of what they would think, you know, is... And
I think that's the most difficult part about being...
Because I'm not interested. Yeah. But yeah, I know I have to learn that, and I know I have to retain that.
Yeah.
But I'm not interested. Do you see what I'm saying? The dichotomy of those two things? You know?
I think it's more on... I agree to that.
You know?
Yeah.
I'm not interested in the slightest. You're going to teach me about a subject I don't give two fucks about. But guess what? I'm going to listen because I'm bloody telling my brain, hey man, you need to know this shit.
Yeah, like I told you, we were talking before the podcast started. You asked me about the God Delusion by Richard Dawkins.
Yeah.
And because I don't really, you know, I'm a very spiritual person.
Yeah, I know.
And I believe in God, and you're an atheist.
And we should probably tell everyone that we're playing on opposite teams, but we get along. You know,
so well.
I know. And I, again, since meeting you, you've changed my perspective on two things: abortion, right? And also the agnostic belief of the universe. Okay? Big Bang, things like that. You've changed my belief on two things. Even though I'm not going to be a contradictor. I'm not going to contradict myself on the topic and say I'm an atheist and then say, oh, you know, Big Bang. But I am going to speak about that I'm open to an agnostic definition of the Big Bang. I'm not saying it did happen or it didn't. With me?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay? It did happen, but how? Why? Has it happened before? What was there before?
Yeah, it's crazy to think.
Okay, those things.
Yeah, it's just crazy to me that the Big Bang, something always has to.
I know.
Right?
I know.
Scientifically, there is something, right?
Again, we're not designed to know that now, mate.
Exactly.
At our stage of evolution, we're not designed to know that. Will we know that in the future? Absolutely. Which is my argument for why religion is shit. Yeah. Because we are going to know these answers and disprove most of this shit in the future.
There are some advantages to religion, but there are also disadvantages.
There's advantages to faith. There's no advantage to religion, from what I've seen.
Okay.
There's advantages to faith in my life. Okay? Being spiritual, you are in faith. But to say there's advantages to organised religion, other than anything apart from control and money, that's my belief.
Again, it is to an extent.
Yeah.
Right. To anything.
Yeah.
If you're too far if you're too radical about being
and you don't want to be militant in your beliefs. You don't want to go and spruik that to everybody, but you want to still go on record and say these things to some extent. You know, you've gone on record when we've spoken, and I've gone on record when I spoke to you. So we get a parameter of what you think versus what I think. We get a very, not a general idea, but I pretty much know what you think, and I don't think that's going to change. Would I be right in that?
And what do you think?
I think spirituality is paramount to God's creatures on earth. You do agree with evolution, okay? Which again, I don't think evolution is up for debate, even though there are many people I have met recently who I really love and admire in my life, speaking about me. And as soon as they bring up, I don't think evolution's real, I sort of switch off. I power down.
Now you lost my interest.
You've lost my interest. I fucking love you, but you've lost my interest because evolution is not something you can agree or disagree on. Okay? We won. It happened. Yeah? But I do believe that you think that in terms of the broader aspect of the universe, you believe that had a creator. Would I be right?
You are right, because I've always thought about science, and a lot of people separate the two. Like when we first met, right? I told you, a lot of people separate science and religion. But when you think about it in a historical perspective, or just think about it in general. Yeah. All the medieval scientists, even the scientist Newton, believed that there is a God.
Right. And some of the best scientists to this day, guess what? Pains me to say it, fucking religious.
Yeah, because there is something.
They're intensely religious.
It just makes sense.
Is that their upbringing and they've been brainwashed?
That's also an aspect.
That is how I look at things. I look at things through a rational person. Because when you're young and impressionable, William von Hippel, I don't care what you're saying, mate. Okay? Whatever that parent tells you, you are fucking believing until you go out to the outside world. You've got nothing to compare it to. You've got nothing. You know, if you are getting told that Mormonism, right, we'll just pick a random religion, Mormonism is true, you know, God doesn't exist, Jesus is the high power, what kind of fucked up shit is that? And how can you tell them different when you're, say, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10? How can you tell them different?
It's the same as growing up with one worldview, right? So it's, I guess you kind of cling on to the belief. It's because when something else happens, it destroys that that frame of the world, destroys it. Your frame of the world, it destroys
your perspective, and what you know, And then guess what? It's like you said before. Then you know nothing.
Yeah, it's
then
like
you have nothing.
When it's like if I'm a very religious person and thinking that we are the only beings here in the universe, and then tomorrow aliens come in, I'm just gonna be like, oh fuck.
And that's pretty fucking arrogant to think that we're the only intelligent life in the universe, isn't it?
But in that perspective,
that's a human mentality.
Your whole worldview crashes.
I know.
Because I've been told this one thing.
I know.
And now there are aliens.
I know.
Like communicating with us.
I know.
What the heck?
I know.
Like.
And again, who's to say that will or will not happen? But again, based on what we know of the universe, right, and the known universe, right, just for argument's sake here, again, we are probably not alone, mate. We are really probably not alone. Okay? Has this type of evolutionary race been won before on another planet that is similar to life? That is, carbon-based life forms, all that type of crap? Yeah. Probably, yeah. I'm not saying something as far-fetched as dolphins came out of the ocean and they won the evolutionary race, but they're an intelligent creature, aren't they? So maybe our form of life took place in the ocean on that planet. Because they're an intelligent, the brain has to be there. Okay? The brain power has to be there to start, like with us when we evolved. Okay? That was there. That was key. That was evident. All right. They were a creature, okay, that evolved, that had the capacity to evolve.
And they evolved depending on...
A butterfly cannot. Okay? A butterfly cannot. Okay? But they evolved dependent on their surroundings.
That's true.
Okay?
I'm gonna go a bit more science fiction here.
Go.
Plo Koon in Star Wars, right?
Yeah, of course.
Wearing the mask because you can't breathe oxygen. Yeah. So it depends on
your environment.
In your environment. There might be other life forms out there who breathe carbon dioxide.
Yeah. Instead of
breathe
oxygen.
Nitrogen.
Absolutely.
Instead.
Yeah. So as the main atom.
Yeah.
And again, if we can throw back to another tangent, when I look at disorders, again, this could be the topic of our podcast today, but again, when I look at things like autism, I look at things like Down syndrome, I look at other hereditary things, hereditary being the key word, all right? Are they throwback genes to when Homo sapiens and Neanderthals mated? Were they meant to mate? Probably not, but they did, didn't they? And it stuffed up the genes. And because remember, with disorders, you hear the terms mutated gene, okay, a lot. You'll hear that a lot when you look up and do research. Mutated gene or recessive gene, yeah? But are they recessive that far back? Yeah, there's a possibility.
If you think about it,
there's a big possibility.
What we are now as Homo sapiens, I'm not saying if anybody's listening, do your research, right? But
2%.
This is just our perspective.
You've got 2% Neanderthal in you, and so do I.
But most of what we are now is a series of mutations throughout history, right? Like we were like if we did evolve from Australopithecus, for example. We were so much hairier than this.
I know.
Right? I mean, we still are, but it's just really fine. You know?
Absolutely.
So, there is something that we are just a series of mutations, and to say that like Jordan Peterson has that he has skin conditions, right? And he only eats meat, and same with his daughter Michaela.
And what does his ancestors do? Even though you could say omnivores, okay, you can say omnivores till the cows come home. So that doesn't mean you can't eat meat, though. That's the thing.
Yeah. That is kind of like a maybe a genetic mutation as well. Like me, I do have psoriasis. You don't see it now, right? But when we first started, man,
I know. God bless drugs. God bless them.
And there is something.
I'm contradicting exactly everything I've said on this podcast, but God bless some drugs. You know,
there is something to it. Yeah. I mean, the only reason I don't want to do a meat-based diet is because of my spirituality. What I believe in,
right? And I accept that.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And I think that's the hardest part to it, because I wouldn't be able to experience it, and I really can't, because growing up as a vegetarian, I've tasted meat, and to me it's nothing. Yeah. To me it's like okay, but then I resort back to being vegetarian, or now I'm vegan, but because that's what I'm used to. Yeah. Right. And spiritually, that's what I also believe in, because I can just. As a person, I don't believe in this anymore, and I can just eat meat. Yeah. But to me, that just, I guess my value as a person, that's just really what I believe in, truly. So I can't really bring myself to eat.
Now, can I ask,
Yeah, of course.
Can I ask, is that because of taste?
No.
Would your parents be really upset with you? Change those views?
No, actually,
or their views that you hold?
No, they wouldn't be. They're actually. He said it's up to me if I want to be a carnivore now. It's up to me. But I was like,
just when you say it like that, to be a carnivore, it's just so fucking funny, isn't it? You know, it's just such a thing. You just go around, hi, Nico, yeah, what do you, yeah, carnivore, yep, hello, mate, carnivore. You know, it's like again, I eat a predominantly meat, vegetable, fruit diet, dairy, about there. So meat, fruit. I would say meat, veg, fruit, dairy. I would say those are my staples. That's how I get through in the world. Grains, seldom ever. Okay? Seldom ever. Doesn't work well for me. But meat is my main source, okay? I love meat. It works well. It changed me in the gym. It changed me as a thinker. Long-term energy. As soon as I started eating meat, no, it's mass-produced. It's not the most ethical way of it. But again, if I was to not eat meat, I would not be who and how I am right now in front of you. You know?
And saying that, I just feel like, you know, because the veganism trend or the veganism trend hasn't been that way. And I feel like if we continue down this road, biologically speaking, we might evolve into two different, species. Maybe, I'm not saying we are going to, but maybe there is a possibility to have that mutation where we process, greens well more than others. It's like you being your ancestors being up north in Scandinavia, in Germany. Yeah. You produce your own vitamin D. Yeah. Right? In the Philippines, we don't, because the sun's always shining.
I agree. Right? I absolutely agree.
So there is something to it.
And again, on a selfish side note, I love the fact that there's vegans out there in the world and that they spruik their cardinal knowledge the way that they do. And I'll tell you why. It's because they're a science experiment, right? Because of what you just said. We're going to find out if that's the optimal way in 20 years.
You might be hunting us.
They don't have to volunteer. They might be. They might be. I might be so fat and big that they just go, fuck, let's get that guy. Yeah. You know? But it's great. We don't need a volunteer test group. We don't need a peer review study. Yeah. They're going to be out there, aren't they? And voluntarily going, fuck you and your meat eating. Man. Yeah, and we're going to eat meat and they're going to eat their vegetables, right? Okay? Right, I don't care if they think one's conscious or one's not conscious. That's irrelevant. They're eating the food that they want. They're going to go one way, we're going to go another. And hopefully in the middle, there's someone smart. Not me. Not me. It won't be me. But I hope there's someone in the middle that looks at both of them and studies them in 20, 30 years from now. Yeah. Maybe it might probably have to be longer, okay? To get the tools to study these people. Okay? It might have to be longer. Because to study those people, you're going to see, right, who had offspring? Who had offspring on this side? Did they have neurological conditions? Did they have neurological conditions? Did they have heaps more like peanut allergies? Do I have peanut allergies? We're going to go off into tangents, and it's going to be a fair, unbiased subject that we look at, isn't it? It's fantastic.
And it's really hard to look at.
And they're voluntarily doing this.
And it's really hard to look at it now because we're living in it in the moment.
I know.
But in maybe 100 years, a millennia years.
Yeah, I know.
There might be a difference.
And guess what? Humans will probably last that long.
So the video cut off, but where were we?
Civilization ending, but still going on. As a human species.
There is a because when we evolve two ways, would you say that, for example, hard to tell. Like if you take out pigs, like domesticated pigs out, if you set them free, they become kind of feral again. They evolve into like they adapt to the environment they're in.
Yeah, but then they revert back to type.
It's really hard to say in a human point of view if we do that to ourselves. If, for example, civilization comes from, and will we I guess we'll adapt to it quickly, but then will we evolve certain features as well? Like, evolution, we adapt to our environment.
I think
you know what I'm talking about.
I think in terms of will Homo sapiens look different? I don't think so. I don't think we'll look strikingly different.
Unless there's
I think in terms of, say, in China with their high levels of pollution, there is third eyelid which can come down, which a dog has, other animals have, and can block out certain types of pollutants.
Yeah, that's
same
what
with
I mean,
breathing. Same with your ears. If your ears develop over time and you don't like noise, for example, earwax will build up and that will cushion the tympanic eardrum within your earlobe, right? And that will depressurize and actually help you from losing your hearing. And with your nose, you might get more nose hair to stop breathing in dangerous fumes. That type of evolution I can get behind. But in terms of us growing another fucking set of eyelids or a third eye, I don't see that happening unless we were to mate off with another species, which don't exist anymore.
Or mating with somebody who has that genetic mutation.
Well, look, but that gene has to come back again. You have to know that they have that, and that person has to then meet that person. But as a whole, how many races on Earth are actually meeting up with each other and dating and creating offspring? A lot, man. A German with an Australian, or let's go even more crazy, Chinese with a Japanese. So I mean that's got to be producing some sort of offspring, and then that offspring then goes on.
It does, but what I'm meaning to say is like genetical, like physical difference,
striking.
Yeah.
See, I don't agree that there will be striking differences in the future with humans. I think they'll be subtle, like I just mentioned, in terms of to adapt to our environment. Because again, we're poisoning ourselves.
Yeah.
Okay, we pollute up there, right, in space, and we pollute down here on the ground. That's just our nature. Okay, we're a wasteful species.
Yeah.
Okay, by nature, we can't stop reverting back to type.
Because as a species, right, we used to be up in the tree.
Yeah, absolutely.
But then we all evolved to be running.
Yeah.
We lost all our hair, like the horses do. I think they're the only animals that sweat too, same as us. I'm not sure.
I'd have to look that up.
My word for
You'd have to look that up. You'd have to look that up, but maybe. Yeah.
Yeah. So we evolved to have like our arms to be elastic, like throwing stuff. If you see a chimpanzee, it can't really throw shit, but it can hang for so long.
Yeah.
Longer than you and me.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
They're experts at that because they're always up in the trees.
You know what's amazing is like at what point, again, in their evolution, do they just say, you know what, walking's fucking simpler? Do you know what I mean? I still can't get my food, but walking is so much more fun.
Yeah, but
do you know what I mean?
I think we still have that in ourselves because as humans we band together as a group because in a group we're more safe. Like again, going through life as high school, you band with a certain group, and it makes you more safe because I feel like before when I was listening to this is listening to a lot of podcasts and also researching. Researching on your own time, but also when you're by yourself, right? Let's say thousands of years ago, when we were still going out in the Sahara or in Africa, right? Yeah. And then there's like a fucking lion.
Yeah, I know. Man, what do?
You by yourself, you're gonna get mauled as a.
And how many times did that happen? Yeah. Probably in human history. Probably a fucking lot. Yeah.
And then, but we learned that we banding together and then scaring the lion.
Absolutely.
Is more effective than being
working as a group. Yeah.
They are gonna.
And you hit the nail on the head. I reckon that's the only reason that this species of humans survived. Is they were viciously brutal and violent and worked together and eliminated all competition.
Yeah, because
that's why we're here.
There are gonna be some humans who, the first time you're doing it, there are gonna be some humans, like let's say 20 humans, and that's one line. There are gonna be some who die.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because we don't really have protection against claws or teeth.
Of course, yeah.
But then us all throwing rocks at it is gonna.
And you got to remember, back then there was no value, there was no societal structure, was there? Right. So a life is not a life. Where a life now is a life. To put it quite bluntly. It has value, it has meaning. You go to jail if you kill someone, manslaughter, blah, blah, blah. They have value. Back then, right, with no societal structure, this isn't just a hypothesis, that's how it was, okay? It didn't have value. So it's like, right, I've made friends with Timmy, we need to go kill that lion because I'm freaking hungry, I'm sick of eating berries. Oh, Timmy's dead. Do you know what I mean? Do you think they felt? Do you think they gathered round and had vigils? Do you think,
They might have had.
They might have. Most probably not. And then they carried on and eating. More meat to eat, less for Timmy.
I feel like I disagree on that. I feel like they did. They also did because they valued, having a community. But I feel like it's more on what you're trying to say is more on like survival, right?
Absolutely.
That's it.
Absolutely. Because there's no refrigerators. You
Well,
know?
I feel like they did, because they would have burials in too. Because where did that burying?
I know, and at what point did that become the norm? Grieving, like we just said.
I read some. Sorry.
You're right.
I read it somewhere before that it was the Neanderthals who were actually the first one to bury their dead.
And remember with Neanderthals, and that's interesting. Remember with them, they were actually intelligent. There's a misconception that they were stupid buffoons that just didn't have. They had fire.
Maybe that's why I thought
agriculture.
You were
yeah, probably. I look like a Neanderthal, but they had fire. They had horticulture. They could actually, harvest. They could do these things, But again, I hate to say it, man, but again, they were wiped out, probably on purpose. They were bred with and wiped out with. Why?
Maybe. I can't really say.
I can't see, from all the research I've done and looked into, I can't see why, if they weren't a stronger version of a species, that's the correct term, why they didn't survive then. You know what I mean? Unless they were stronger, unless they were wiped out. There's no good evolutionary reason why that they wouldn't be here right now talking to us. They weren't one or the other.
It's weird to think about, because it's mostly in science fiction or in a fantasy, medieval fantasy, Dungeons and Dragons, and that there are subhuman species like elves and dwarves. It's crazy to think about now, but because we did live in a time where there were other humans, like the Neanderthals, the Denisovans.
I know. Only recently found out though, the Denisovans.
It's crazy to think that everybody was...
And more species are coming to light every day, aren't they? So we don't really know shit about where we came from and how it came, Came out of Africa some 50 million odd years ago, didn't we? And that was it. That's the story we're told. And that's it. Some went one way, some went another. Some were smarter, some weren't.
I actually asked my biology... I think I told you this before. When I was in high school, I asked my biology teacher if, for example, we were isolated to our own regions, would we have evolved into this?
Shit.
We might be able to. Because we adapt to our environment, right? And you can see it physically. Like, you're white, I'm brown.
Yeah.
And you guys evolved up there north. The sun is not always shining.
I tell you what, man, we are not the people, like, again, Australia being a penal colony, white people coming here, really harsh and violent. We are not much. You wonder why we've got high skin cancer rates? We are not fucking made for this planet, for this continent, sorry to speak. We are not made for this continent. We really aren't, We've chosen the wrong one, It's just not designed.
Well, you guys mutate to it.
I know, but came here.
That's why it's a mutation.
We came here. Who was here before us? Dark-skinned people.
Isn't freckles like a mutation?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. I think so. Yeah. Again, and it's all of that stuff is melanin within the skin. Again, if you have less melanin, you're in a lot of trouble. But you can build up a resistance to melanin, and you can build up your melanin. But again, dark-skinned people were here. They probably came through your country or Indonesia to get here. And again, they were designed to live here.
Actually,
60,000 years they survived here.
I was browsing through Instagram and I found this white guy.
Oh, really?
White guy who likes Philippine culture.
Really?
He knows more about Philippine history than me. I'm like, oh man, I felt ashamed, man.
Yeah.
But he was talking about how the first people who went to the Philippines were Negritos, black people from Africa. But I knew about that. I knew about that subgroup of people who went.
I mean, they all came from there.
Yeah.
So again, they
but that's why we have we have this skin color as well. But then most of our language is more on Austronesian, which came from Taiwan and all the way back down. So we have kind of the same language structures. I am not 100% sure, but I know the Austronesian people are mostly the Maoris, the what are the people that live in
New Zealand?
New Zealand?
No, just the Maoris. Yeah.
Like the Hawaiians as well.
Yeah, so they're your Polynesian races, and they live predominantly.
Yeah, but we're not related in we're so much different.
Yeah, of course.
There's
of course.
so many cultural
But again,
differences.
let's just look at it basically. If you just hop from island to island, you're going to set up your different cultures. There's going to be similarities because they're all coming from the same people.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Again, and we can argue over land bridges and how they got there all day, but they fucking made it there. Can you imagine crossing a sea that long ago with primitive means and boats? And like I just said to you about Timmy getting eaten by a tiger, you know, it would have happened. They would have died a lot of death just to get there and populate. But they survived in these God-forsaken, harsh countries for 60,000 years. You know? But there's a reason that they were that good and designed for those areas. They've had a lot of time to procreate as well as assimilate to the life and the environment that's around them. You know, and that's worth something. You know, we may look at them as, you know, less than us because us humans have a tendency to look at people and look down upon them and go, oh, they're not advanced. They don't have an iPhone, you know. But at the end of the day, you try living in wilderness, hunting, foraging. Wouldn't last 2 minutes. Society was to end tomorrow.
Did you watch that?
If I was to die tomorrow, yeah, but that's all fake. They're sleeping in hotels at night.
Have you seen that Bear Grylls?
Sleeping in a hotel at night.
No. That I think there was like man versus woman kind of thing. Have you seen that?
Yeah, no, I haven't seen it. But if it's anything like his TV show,
it's like a group of men versus a group of women. They're separate islands, right?
Right.
And they face up against each other and what we'll do. And what the end of I was just watching a review of the episode for it, but then he was like. If you look at it, like what do you call it? Like not a review, but like opinion on the subject.
Yeah.
If you examine what these men did and what the women did, the women slept in more communal style settlements. They slept together, and then they're mostly gathering. And then the men were the ones who were more hunting and slept in more separate kind of like beds.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. So if set out in the wild, we'll return back to that hunter-gatherer instinct.
It would take a long time because at the end of the day, we're designed to work in bursts. You know how we sleep 8 hours, work 8 hours, that type of thing. So if we were to revert back to that, let's just say like all infrastructure ceased to exist. You're right in what you're saying, but it would take a lot. The sort of not get out of this state.
Get out of this headspace that we're
in right
because
now. Again, we get bored, we get tired. If we're not stimulated by a phone every 10 minutes, fuck that. You know what I mean?
That's why I feel like if civilization does crumble, I think we'll find other ways of stimulating it.
Yeah, I agree. Absolutely.
Yeah. And it's more on, I guess. Since internet is gone and everything's gone, it's more on again looking for ways to improve life.
Still hunter-gatherers out there.
I mean, they still do it now.
Still hunter-gatherers out there. They're surviving.
Yeah, I mean, we're still doing it now.
We might be more susceptible to common colds and diseases. Eventually, we might build up an immunity to that. You know, instead of having pre-packaged foods which are causing allergies. If we were to go back to a hunter-gatherer state, would we build up an immunity? Probably. Everything I've read about, natural diets and all that seems to build up your tolerance to these things, which that would be a pro, that would be a plus, but again, there'd be more. So everything has pluses and minuses. This stage of human history where we're at right now, doesn't it?
It is.
Pluses and minuses.
It's interesting to think about, and I would love it to. I'd actually would love to talk to evolutionary science.
Absolutely.
And
I would.
Everything we've talked about now.
Yeah.
I would like one day to talk to my aunt, who's a teacher, but she lives up in the U.S.
Yeah.
She lives up in California.
Yeah.
So the time differences as well.
I'm sure we could do a Skype. Be nice.
Yeah.
I'm sure that would.
One day.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
But I feel like actually, it has been a bit more than. I think it's 2 hours now.
I know, it's good.
But great talk, and I feel like I actually wanted to talk to you more about your your family.
Yeah,
I know about
next
you have a Nazi grandfather.
Absolutely.
And I want to touch on that, but
so we'll end on Nazism, all right, and leave it at that. Yeah, we'll talk about that at the next time. All right,
yeah, okay,
that would be great. Yeah, that's a whole nother topic.
But it's good having you, man. It's always great to talk to you.
Thank you very much.
And I appreciate it. We'll do this again.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. Yeah.
But
no, fuck that. No, I'd love to, man.
But anyway, we'll end it there, man.
Good on you, man.
All right.
Beautiful. Thank you very much.
Thank you, dude.